All right, let's dive into one of Shakespeare's most famous, funniest, and, let's be honest, most controversial comedies, The Taming of the Shrew. This is a play that people have argued about for centuries. Some say it's a hilarious battle of wits, while others call it a pretty disturbing guide to spousal abuse. And it definitely leaves you with some tough questions.
And that's really the big one, isn't it? The central question that hangs over this entire story. Are we watching two incredibly strong-willed people find a very unconventional kind of love, or are we watching a step-by-step masterclass in how to completely break a person's spirit? That's the tension we're going to get into today.
But before we jump into the plot, a real quick note on the text itself. We like to think of Shakespeare's plays as being carved in stone, but that's not really the case. They came down to us in different early versions, like the smaller quartos or the big First Folio collection. So what you read today is basically an editor's best guess at what was actually performed back then.
Okay, so let's get to the play itself, which starts in a very weird way. See, The Taming of the Shrew doesn't actually begin with the main story. It starts with a story about someone watching a story.
So yeah, instead of some beautiful Italian city, we open on this guy, Christopher Sly, passed out drunk outside a pub. He's loud, he's a mess, and he is definitely not your typical rom-com hero.
So a local nobleman stumbles across Sly and decides to play this incredibly elaborate prank. I mean, it's seriously over the top. They carry him to a mansion, dress him in the finest clothes, and plan to convince him when he wakes up that he's a rich lord who has had amnesia for 15 years. And to make the whole illusion complete, the Lord hires a troupe of traveling actors to put on a play just for Sly's entertainment. And that play, the one performed for a drunk beggar who thinks he's a lord, well, that's The Taming of the Shrew. It's a bizarre setup that right from the beginning makes you ask, is anything we're about to see meant to be taken seriously? So, with our audience of one Christopher Sly all settled in, the play within the play can finally begin. We're whisked away to Padua, where we meet a wealthy family dealing with a very public and very loud problem.
And that problem is the two daughters of a rich merchant named Baptista. They are total opposites. You have the younger daughter, Bianca, who's seen as the perfect woman. She's quiet, beautiful, obedient. All the young men in town want to marry her. And then there's the older daughter, Catherine. She's known far and wide as Catherine the Cursed, a shrew, famous for her sharp tongue and an absolutely ferocious temper.
And trust me, this is not just a rumor. We see it in action almost immediately. Catherine physically attacks Bianca, convinced her sister is mocking her. Their own father, Baptista, just throws his hands up in despair, calling her a devilish spirit. Her temper is very, very real, and it's a huge issue for the family.
So Baptista makes a new house rule, a simple one. Nobody gets to marry the lovely, sought-after Bianca until a husband, any husband, is found for Catherine. And as you can imagine, this throws all of Bianca's suitors into a complete panic. Bianca's suitors are desperate for a solution. And luckily for them, a solution just happens to ride into town. A man who looks at Catherine not as a problem, but as a golden opportunity.
Meet Petruchio. This guy is bold, he's boisterous, and he's refreshingly honest about what he wants. He says he's come to Padua happily to wive and thrive. In other words, he's looking to marry a woman with a huge pile of cash. For him, marriage is a business transaction. So Bianca's suitors see their chance. They tell Petruchio all about Catherine, making sure to mention her massive dowry first and then her, let's say, difficult personality. But Petruchio isn't scared off in the slightest. He boasts that he can handle any woman and declares he'll be the one to woo her.
And he is not subtle about it. In their very first meeting, which is this incredible explosion of witty insults, he makes his goal perfectly clear. He tells her straight to her face, "I am he I'm born to tame you, Kate." He's not trying to win her heart. He's on a mission to break her spirit and make her conform.
So after this absolutely chaotic wooing, Petruchio manages to set a wedding date. But his project, his teaming school as he calls it, doesn't really start until the wedding day itself. Petruchio's method seems to be all about public humiliation and control. He shows up to his own wedding super late, and he's dressed like an absolute fool. He acts rudely during the ceremony, and then, get this, he forces Catherine to leave with him before their own wedding feast can even begin. And his reason for doing this is just horrifying. As he's dragging her away, he announces to everyone, her family, their friends, that she is now his property.
He literally says she's his goods, his chattels, just like his house or his horse or his ox. He's claiming total ownership over her.
Once they get to his house in the country, this psychological taming begins for real. He uses all these brutal tactics, but he disguises them as concern for her well-being. He starves her, but claims the food just isn't good enough for her. He keeps her awake all night by throwing tantrums. He won't let her have new clothes. It's a systematic process designed to wear her down completely.
And we know this is a deliberate strategy because Petruchio tells us so himself. He compares Catherine to a wild falcon that you have to starve and deprive of sleep until it's so broken that it will obey its master without question. It is a chillingly precise metaphor for what he's doing.
So after this brutal training, Petruchio decides Catherine is ready for her final exam. They ride back to Padua to attend Bianca's wedding feast, which sets the stage for the play's notorious climax.
Back at the party, Petruchio is feeling pretty smug, so he proposes a big bet with two of the other new husbands at the feast. The wager is simple. Each man will send for his wife. The husband, whose wife is the most obedient and comes when called, wins the money.
The result is shocking to absolutely everyone. The supposedly perfect Bianca sends back a message saying she's too busy. The other wife just flat out refuses. But when Petruchio calls for Catherine, she comes immediately.
Petruchio wins the bet, of course, and Catherine's father is ecstatic. He's so impressed with this transformation that he gives Petruchio an entirely new dowry. In the eyes of every man in that room, the taming was a complete and total success. As her father says, she is changed as she had never been.
But this brings us right back to that final haunting question. When Catherine gives her final long speech about how wives should obey their husbands, is it because her spirit is truly broken? Or, as a lot of people argue now, did this brilliant, fierce woman realize that in her world the only way to get any power was to perform the role of the perfect wife? Did she actually surrender, or did she just figure out a much smarter way to win the game? And that question is exactly what makes this play so fascinating, so dark, and so endlessly debatable.